Imagine teeing up your golf ball on a brisk morning. You check the swirling mountain wind, calculate the steep drop-off to the green, and right as you take your practice swing, you realize you are standing mere feet away from a 100-year-old graveyard.
Right, which, I mean, it definitely shatters that typical frictionless image of a luxury country club. You
Yeah.
aren't just playing a sport there. You're navigating an environment where extreme wilderness, profound local history, and ultra-high-end amenities don't just sit side by side. They literally collide.
Exactly. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a stack of sources centered around a very specific, honestly fascinating place, the Burlingame Country Club in Sapphire, North Carolina.
Nestled right in the Highlands-Cashiers Plateau.
Yeah, stretching across Jackson, Macon, and Transylvania counties. And our mission today is to look completely past the glossy real estate brochures. We're going to use on-the-ground YouTube golf vlogs, historical archives from the Toxaway Foundation, exhaustive amenity lists, and the really meticulous real estate field notes from local experts Carrie Bateman and Henry Hall.
Right, because we want to figure out the physical, historical, and practical realities of building a community in such an extreme location.
Because if you, the listener, are looking at property up there, or, I don't know, maybe you're planning a golf trip a couple of hours north of Atlanta, you aren't just buying a house or booking a tee time. You are buying into a very intense geography.
Yeah, understanding how a piece of rugged 3,000-foot elevation wilderness actually functions day to day as a livable community, well, it requires looking at the mechanics of the land itself.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to throw you right into the visceral experience of what it physically feels like to stand on this property. The YouTube vlogs in our stack are incredible for this.
Oh, they're so revealing.
Right. You watch these guys, vloggers, who play top-tier courses literally for a living, and they are standing in the tee boxes absolutely stunned. One golfer, who usually plays down at sea level in Florida, is looking at a 100-foot elevation drop on a single hole.
Yeah, just staring over the edge.
Like he's peering into the Grand Canyon. And the raw numbers back up his panic, honestly. From the gold tees, the tips, this course is 6,600 yards with a slope rating of 142. For anyone who doesn't speak fluent golf course architecture, decode that 142 for us.
Sure, so the slope rating system is how the USGA measures the difficulty of a golf course for a bogey golfer like an average player.
Yeah.
A standard average difficulty course has a slope rating of 113.
Okay, 113 is average.
Right. And the absolute maximum rating, which is generally reserved for the most torturous, wind-whipped professional tracks in the world, is 155. So hitting a 142 means this course is exceptionally difficult.
Wow.
It is a severe architectural challenge that punishes even slight miscalculations.
I mean, playing this course sounds less like a traditional flat grass game and more like trying to do complex trigonometry while hiking a mountain. The vloggers were constantly talking about the atmosphere itself.
Well, they have to, because the 3,000-foot average elevation fundamentally alters the physics of the game.
Yeah.
At that altitude, the air is thinner.
Right.
There are fewer air molecules, which means less aerodynamic drag on the golf ball. So the ball flies further and faster. But there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
Always. The thinner air also reduces the Magnus effect.
The Magnus effect.
Yeah, it's the aerodynamic force that gives a golf ball its lift and spin. So your shots not only travel further, they also fly flatter, and they don't stop as quickly when they hit the ground. Add in the unpredictable mountain winds that funnel through the valleys and bounce off the rock faces, and you have a mathematical nightmare.
That actually explains one of the wildest moments in the footage. A player was looking at a 180-yard shot on a par 3. Normally, that's maybe a 6-iron or a 7-iron for a pro.
Yeah, standard approach.
But he had to club way down, agonizing over the math, trying to figure out how much the 100-foot drop in the thin air would carry the ball, just praying he wouldn't overshoot the green and end up in a ravine.
It's nerve-wracking.
And the dog legs. These aren't just gentle curves in a meadow. One vlogger was setting up on a par 5, and instead of pulling out his driver to blast it down the fairway, he pulled out a 7-wood off the tee. A 7-wood.
Which is actually a brilliant strategic choice when you understand the topography out there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If he hits a driver in that thin air, the ball is going to launch on a flat trajectory, hit the fairway, and just roll out forever, likely right past the corner of the dogleg and straight into the dense forest.
Oh, I see.
Right, so a 7-wood, however, has a lot more loft. It sends the ball high into the air with a very steep angle of descent. He needed to surgically drop the ball onto a specific patch of grass at the corner of the dogleg so it would stop dead. It's target golf on a massive scale.
I have to push back here, though. I mean, you're hitting blind shots over hills, you're dropping balls into red stakes, you are constantly recalculating wind speeds and elevation drops. Is that actually fun? Or is it just punishing?
That's a fair question.
I mean, there is a fine line between a luxury sporting experience and outright masochism, right?
It is a delicate balance, and it certainly isn't for a player who wants a relaxing, mindless round. But if you listen to the first-hand accounts in those vlogs, the overwhelming sentiment wasn't frustration. It was awe.
Even with the double bogeys.
Yeah, despite the double bogeys, despite losing balls in the brush, they couldn't stop talking about the pristine condition of the fairways. They were hitting approach shots with massive, ancient mountain peaks framing the background. And hole 17 has that famous peninsula green. They were putting next to literal rushing waterfalls.
That does sound incredible.
The extremity of the environment is the appeal. It demands your absolute presence. You cannot casually play this course. You have to be intimately aware of the mountain at all times.
Which brings up a really fascinating structural question for me. How does a place this extreme, this rugged and unforgiving, ever become a target for a country club in the first place? I mean, nobody just stumbles up a 3,000-foot mountain, looks at a sheer cliff face, and says, let's pour some sand traps and build a clubhouse.
Definitely not. To understand the origin of the community, we have to look at the historical archives from the Toxaway Foundation. The story of this land doesn't start with leisure. It starts with heavy industry.
Oh, right.
Long before anyone was swinging a golf club up there, people were swinging pickaxes. We have to go back to 1892.
The Sapphire Valley Mining Company, they were up in those mountains hunting for corundum.
Exactly. Specifically, sapphires and rubies.
Right.
The region was incredibly rich in these minerals. And one of the miners working that soil in the late 1890s was a man named W.A. Burlingame.
Oh, there's the name.
Yep. He transitioned from mining to becoming a prominent local figure, eventually serving as the postmaster of the original Sapphire post office in 1908. He was such a fixture in the community that a local tributary creek was named after him.
So the namesake of this highly manicured, ultra-exclusive luxury development was essentially a guy covered in mud, digging in the dirt for raw gems over a century ago. That is wild.
It is. And the transition from mining to luxury actually happened remarkably fast in the early 1900s. The mining executives realized that the mountains themselves, the azure skies, and the crisp air were just as valuable as the sapphires in the ground.
Selling the scenery instead of the stones.
Precisely. They started marketing the region as the Sapphire Country. This sparked a massive tourism boom for the wealthy elite. Grand hotels sprang up the Fairfield Inn, the Sapphire Inn, and the crown jewel, the incredibly opulent Toxaway Inn, which sat on the edge of a newly created man-made lake.
But the boom didn't last. The archives highlight a catastrophic turning point in 1916.
Right, the Toxaway Dam burst.
And it wasn't just a small breach. Millions of gallons of water wiped out the lake entirely. And the economic mechanics of that disaster are staggering. When that dam burst, it didn't just empty a lake, it literally washed away the infrastructure that made the tourism economy possible.
Yeah, the floodwaters destroyed the roads and heavily damaged the southern railway extensions that led up to the plateau. And without the trains, the wealthy tourists couldn't transport their massive steamer trunks to the resorts. The isolation became absolute. The Toxaway Inn sat empty for years before it was finally dismantled and sold for scrap. The money left, the visitors stopped coming, and the mountains essentially closed for business.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because this disaster essentially acted as a protective barrier. Since the infrastructure was destroyed, developers couldn't access the area during the subsequent decades when, other parts of the country were being heavily built up.
That's a great point.
That 1916 flood effectively froze the region in time, leaving the specific 1,450-acre parcel of land that would eventually become Burlingame completely untouched. It reverted back to raw, rugged wilderness for over half a century. Isn't it incredible that a natural disaster saved it from early overdevelopment?
It really is. The destruction of one era of tourism ensured the preservation of the landscape. It lay completely dormant until the 1960s, waiting for an era of development that had the technology and, frankly, the patience to approach the terrain differently.
Enter Darnell Boyd and Reg Heinich Sr. They were the principals of the Lake Toxaway Company. They bought up huge tracts of this dormant acreage to revive the region. But the partnership didn't last, did it?
No, it didn't. In 1973, they dissolved the company and split their assets. And the way they handle their respective halves dictates the entire modern feel of the plateau.
How so?
Well, Heinrich took the land around the old Lake Toxaway bed, rebuilt the dam, and rushed to develop his portion into a resort community. Darnell Boyd, however, took the 4,450 acres of higher elevation, 3,000-foot wilderness.
The future Burlingame.
Yes, and he took a remarkably slow, deliberate approach. He didn't even begin establishing the community which he initially called Sapphire Lakes until the early 1980s.
Because Boyd understood something fundamental about the geography. You cannot rush high elevation. You have to build with the topography, not just on it. If you try to aggressively bulldoze a 3,000-foot mountain to maximize real estate lots, you destroy the very natural beauty that makes the land valuable in the first place. And Boyd wasn't just an absentee developer phoning it in from an office in Atlanta. He and his wife actually moved there. They built a home overlooking Lake Sequilla right on the property. They lived in the environment they were shaping.
Which is so rare. And that intimate stewardship continued for decades until the Boyds finally sold the development in 2005 to Mark Meadows, a local Highlands realtor. But the most monumental shift in the timeline, the event that truly defines Burlingame today, happened in 2010.
The residents bought it. The property owners themselves formed a Property Owners Association, or POA, and purchased the entire development from the private ownership. We see this sometimes in country clubs, but buying the entire development infrastructure completely alters the economic incentives of the community, doesn't it?
Radically. Henry Hall and Carrie Bateman's real estate field notes dedicate a lot of analysis to this specific dynamic. When a private developer owns a mountain community, their primary fiduciary goal is usually yield.
Right, making money.
Yeah, they are incentivized to pack in as many home sites as the terrain will legally allow, to clear-cut for better views, and to monetize the natural resources.
But when the residents own it, the goal shifts from profit extraction to quality of life. They aren't trying to sell more lots. They are trying to protect the value and the peace of the lots they already live on. It's like a group of renters in a luxury high-rise deciding to buy the entire apartment building together just to ensure the lobby never gets crowded and the elevators are always maintained to their exact standards.
That's a perfect analogy. It transforms the place from a developer's playground into a true model of collective conservation and resident stewardship.
And that brings us to what day-to-day life actually looks like for the roughly 700 residents who live there now. When the residents are in charge of the master plan, how do they balance the raw nature of the plateau with the high-end amenities they expect? Because we looked at the field notes, and it's quite a list.
It really is.
The amenity lists we reviewed are exhaustive. Yes, you have the grueling, beautiful golf course. You also have a full-scale wellness center, a spa, pristine croquet lawns, pickleball courts, tennis facilities, and a dedicated dog park. But the defining features of this community are decidedly not man-made.
No, they aren't. The crown jewel is the horse pasture river, which rushes directly through the property.
Which is amazing.
And the POA actually stocks the horse pasture river 3 times a year, specifically for elite fly fishing. They maintain 4 miles of scenic hiking trails purely within the gates of the community. And those trails lead to 11 different distinct waterfalls.
Think about that for a second. 11 private waterfalls within your neighborhood. Most people are thrilled if their subdivision has a functioning streetlight and a decent sidewalk. These residents are walking out their back doors to a private Appalachian watershed.
It's incredible. Bateman and Hall refer to this in their field notes as the concept of layers in mountain real estate. Yeah, thoughtful mountain communities don't erase the environment. They layer on top of it. You have the top layer of modern luxury, the spa treatments, the perfectly manicured greens, the clubhouse dining. But right beneath that, you have the raw, rugged topography of the river and the granite faces. And beneath that, you have the deep historical layer.
And there is no more powerful, visceral example of those layers colliding than Fairway Number 2.
Oh, this detail from the historical archives is profound. As you walk the second fairway of this modern, highly manicured country club golf course, you will encounter a small, preserved cemetery, the Miller family cemetery.
Tolvin Miller was the caretaker of the Toxaway a century ago, right after the dam burst. His family lived, worked, and died on this land long before a golf course was even a concept.
Right. And when the developers and later the residents were mapping out the routing for the golf course, the standard, ruthless real estate move would have been to relocate the graves or try to route the course far away to hide them from the wealthy members.
But they didn't.
Instead, they integrated it. The community preserved the cemetery right alongside the fairway. They recognized that the history wasn't an eyesore. It was the foundation of the land.
That is why I started this deep dive with that image. Imagine stepping up to hit your approach shot on a Tuesday morning checking the mountain wind, and realizing you are standing next to the graves of the people who walked that exact same dirt a century ago when it was just a remote, flooded-out mining camp. It reminds you that the mountain was here first, and you are just a temporary guest.
Exactly. And Bateman and Hall's field notes urge anyone looking at property in the Highlands-Cashiers Plateau to look for this exact dynamic. You aren't just buying access to a clubhouse, you are evaluating a community's philosophy.
Yeah.
Burlingame demonstrates a masterclass in patience. From the decades it sat empty after the flood, to Darnell Boyd's slow, deliberate build in the 80s, to the residents taking financial control in 2010, every step was about weaving modern luxury into the existing extreme geography, rather than bulldozing it flat.
So if we look back at the journey we've taken today, it is a wild ride. We started with YouTube vloggers absolutely stunned by a 142 slope rating, pulling 7 woods off the tee just to survive 100-foot elevation drops and the thin air of the plateau.
Which is terrifying and beautiful all at once.
Right. And then we traced the dirt back to the 1892 Sapphire miners, explored how a catastrophic 1916 dam burst accidentally preserved 1,450 acres of wilderness, and followed the slow, careful rebirth of the land into the resident-owned stewardship that 700 people call home today.
The history of this specific parcel of land is a constant cycle of extreme nature dictating human behavior. The mountains provided the sapphires, the rain broke the dam, the elevation dictates the Gulf swings.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over based on everything we've uncovered. We've talked a lot about the past, about W.A. Burlingame digging in the dirt, and his name eventually being attached to this highly exclusive manicured sanctuary.
Yeah, quite the evolution.
It is. But as the current 700 residents focus on stewardship for future generations, what kind of legacy are they mining for in those same mountains? Will the future view them as preservers of the wilderness, or just the next layer of the plateau's long history?
That is a really provocative lens to look through. As they maintain the waterfalls and integrate the old cemeteries, are they freezing the mountain in its best state, or is this just another temporary era before the mountain reclaims it all again?
Definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself staring at a glossy real estate brochure or teeing off near a 100-foot drop. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.